The story Floyd told us was that he came in here, it was about 5 years ago, and he noticed that some of the buildings were not in a good state of repair. He looked at Williams Hall, there's rebar showing. He looked at Tri-Towers, it's in a poor state of repairs. Bowman Hall is in need of renovation. The art building is an eyesore. So he talked to those people, he talked to maintenance, he talked to bookkeepers. He said, what have we not been doing? What haven't we kept up with? I want you to go out and find our deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance here is the money we should have paid to keep these buildings standing, but didn't. So they go out, they look at the buildings, they run the numbers, they come back and they say, Vice President Floyd, we need $245 million. That's a lot of money. And we really didn't know where we were going to get it. So we came up with a couple ideas. The university came up with a couple of ideas. The first one was a flat credit hour fee per credit hour on all students, regardless of whether they're over any kind of cap or limit, but it would have been much smaller, supposedly. But in order to levy a fee on every student on campus, on your campus, you need to go to the State Control Board. And so they went to the State Control Board, and what the State Control Board told them was that they didn't really want to be responsible for raising tuition. They didn't want that on their record. They politely asked the university to figure it out themselves. And the university did. They had a lot of plans for the money they were hoping to get. They wanted to sell bonds. To sell bonds, you need to have capital to justify it, to show people that you could pay them back when the time comes, which is what this fee was supposed to go to do. But it was kind of last minute. They had these plans for renovations, for new buildings, which is kind of a gripe we have. So they decided if they can't put a fee on all students, they were just going to put a fee on some. They make up this kind of malarkey about some students being unfair with other students, getting more for their tuition than others do, which is divisive. I'm not supposed to be mad at like someone else in my class rather than mad at the people who charge us for this education. But so they levied this fee. It's $440 per credit hour after 16 now. It was originally 17. It was a phased-in thing. This is step 2. This is supposedly the last step. I understand that these renovations are important. I mean, buildings falling down in poor states of repair. We need to renovate the science labs, according to Floyd, and I have friends in the chemistry department who can attest to this. Our labs are, in some situations, comparable to high school labs, maybe even worse. But there are other things that are not that great uses of our money. The green space out in front of the Student Center, which Floyd told us was a marketing idea. It was so that when they could have people touring through, Kent State looks like a beautiful place. Of course, we had a beautiful place, and we still have a little bit of it left. It was the Commons. We built this disgusting MAC gym annex over it to cover up the place where we shot other students. But they just decided that that was important. In addition to that, we're building a new architecture building. We're tearing down and rebuilding the art building. We're renovating Van Dusen to make it the new art building. And we're taking part in a number of these projects, including extending the Esplanade downtown. I don't know if that's all university money or even some university money. We've recently heard, and this is just scuttlebutt, this hasn't been absolutely confirmed, but there are members of the university administration, members of the Board of Trustees who have investments downtown. Bar 145, Yogurt V, the Hotel and Conference Center. They're shooting kids downtown so they can spend money and make themselves more money. It's not a good way to spend money. And on top of that, remember that $245 million that was supposed to be in deferred maintenance that we had to pay? Buildings were collapsing, and according to Floyd, that's before we even look at the water and electrical, sewage, plumbing systems below ground. $245 million, we only sold $170 million in bonds, which means we wouldn't cover this in the first place. But now we're cutting into our $170 million budget for things that aren't even in dire need of repair. Because we need to look to the future. We need to think about expanding when people like Eric Mansfield, Vice President Floyd, and just about any administrator will let you know, and I will agree to this, that the state budget is not kind to higher education. It's being increasingly cut, and it's a problem. I'm lucky. I have a nuclear family who could help put some money towards my education. This isn't all on me. There are people who have to do this all by themselves. And that's not fair. Education should be available for everybody. And when they just expect us to pay for it, people who can't pay, can hardly pay for rent, to keep a roof over their head, for groceries. This is ridiculous. And so that was our major gripe that I rose with Vice President Floyd, that I think his priorities are all wrong. I think the administration's priorities are all wrong. I think we need to be thinking about our current students, not how we're going to establish our legacy